All right. So when you get to Pixlr, you're going to open the picture that you want to use. So this is the picture that I have. I went to Winnipeg, Manitoba a few years ago, and they have this brand new like museum for human rights, and it's just a really cool like humongous glass and metal building. And this was a picture I took like looking up at the ceiling. So it's got some cool like lines and angles to it. So I thought it would work well for the kaleidoscope picture. All right. So what you're going to do, this is kind of building on our last assignment where we're using the crop tool. This time, instead of aspect ratio, we want to select output size because we want to make sure that this is a specific number of pixels, and that's what's being measured here. The width and the height are in pixels. So I want to set the output at 400 pixels by 400 pixels. All right, this is going to give me a perfect square. It honestly does not matter like what part of the image I grab. Okay, so I'm going to just grab a square that looks interesting and crop it. Okay, I'm going to just kind of move this window aside because now I'm going to need to set up a new document. So I'm going to go to File, New Image. This time it gives me a different box because I'm not opening an existing photo. I'm basically creating like a blank workspace. And I want that canvas, that blank canvas, to be 800 pixels by 800 pixels. Okay, this is really, really important. All right, you with me? For this it will be. Okay, because we want the finished kaleidoscope to be square. So we want it to be 800 by 800 pixels. All right. I'm going to use this new tool called the Move tool. So this one's right next to the Crop tool. And this lets you, as the name might suggest, just move things around. Okay. So in this picture that I cropped, I'm going to grab that background layer from the Layers palette and I'm going to drag it into the new document that I just created that's blank. Okay, so now I've moved that little square into this document and I can put it in any corner that I want. So I can think about maybe how this is going to reflect and copy and move around, and I can just move it wherever I'd like. All right, so I'm kind of looking at this like diagonal line. I think it might be kind of cool if it kind of comes together and almost makes like an X. So that's why I put that here. Okay, once you move it in to the new document, we're going to really use a lot of the Layers palette here. All right, so remember that Layers palette kind of shows those different components that are on your workspace and how they're kind of stacking up on top of or near each other. So this background copy is on top. I can rename these if I want. I can just double click on the layer and I can call this like bottom right corner if I wanted to. Okay, whatever you want to do, you don't have to name them, but if it helps you to keep it organized, you definitely can. You can see there's only stuff in that corner. The rest, you see that white and gray kind of grid? That is just a visual clue that this is what they use to represent transparency in Photoshop or in editing programs. So this just means it's clear and we can't see it. There are no pixels there that won't block the view underneath. Okay? I want to duplicate that layer. You guys have already done that, right? So we're just going to drag the layer from the Layers palette into the new layer icon, and it's just going to make a copy. Now it doesn't look like anything happened because right now those layers are on top of each other. But if I use my Move tool, I can move it into a different corner. Okay, so now I see that I have duplicate copies of that layer. Now, what we don't want to do is just have 4 copies of the layer. We want this to look like a kaleidoscope that has like mirror images. So once I have that layer copied, I'm going to go to the layer menu and I'm going to use the 2 bottom commands here, flip horizontal and flip vertical. So if I flip this vertically, okay, it has flipped kind of what was the top is now the bottom. And now this layer is a mirror image of the one below it. Okay. Now I'm going to duplicate it again to make this the one that belongs up in this corner. Okay. I can do it the same way I just did. I can drag it into this new layer icon, or I can click on the layer. I can go to the layers menu, and I can select duplicate layer. They both work just fine. Okay. Again, it's on top of the other one. And now again, I want to go to the layer palette. This time I want to flip it horizontal. So what was on the left is now on the right. And see how they're now matching up? Okay, I'm not going to worry too much about matching them up perfectly until I get all 4 of them in here. Now, I'm going to duplicate it again. I'm going to drag it into the new layer icon. This time, I need to flip it vertically. And now I have the bottom corner. Okay, now that I have all 4 of my layers in there, now I really want to make sure that they're lined up absolutely perfectly. Okay, so you're going to need to use the layer palette, click on the layer that you want to move around. You can line it up just with your mouse or your trackpad, or you can use the little arrow buttons on your keyboard. And that's a really good way of getting like that fine-tuning adjustments to kind of move pixel by pixel. Now I don't have any white lines lining up. Nothing is kind of overlapping each other. They're perfectly in line with each other. And now I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to save that image. I want to give it a title, Kaleidoscope 1, because you guys are going to be doing at least 2 of these. Okay, and you can decide where you want to save it to. All right. So those are the instructions that are on kind of listed out. Remember, you guys are doing at least 2 of these. You're going to be doing one that's like this, that has 2 layers across and 2 layers down. You're going to be doing a second one with the same steps, just a slight modification. So this time, okay, I'm going to back myself up in the history palette. I'm going to close this because that one I've already done and I've saved it. Oh. Oh, I already have one that's called that. Kaleidoscope, let's 5. Okay. So this was the original image that I opened. Okay. For the second one that you do, you can pick the same picture. You can pick the same part that you cropped. It's going to be a little boring, but you know, you can definitely do that. You could pick an entirely new image altogether. It's up to you. Same thing, you're going to start by cropping, but instead of 400 by 400, it's going to be 200 by 200. Okay? Again, you can think about what part of the picture you want to crop. So maybe I'll crop this down here this time. Okay? I'm going to close that, set it aside. I'm going to open a new image. Again, it's still going to be 800 by 800. Same process. I'm going to use the move tool. I'm going to grab this layer and I'm going to drag it in here. So now you see it's definitely not as big this time. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this layer 4 times. Okay. So I'm going to go to my layer palette. I'm going to flip it horizontal, right? I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to flip it vertical. Oops, I did it the wrong way. So I'm going to undo. Okay, so again, you get the idea. You're going to do this 4 times. You're going to flip them each time. So pretend that these match up just so you don't have to watch me forever. Okay, so these 4 are basically going to be a mirror image, like one little corner. And then what you can do, you can duplicate all 4 of those layers together. So you can merge the layers together, or you can group the layers. All of those options are in the layers palette. Merging them will kind of take these 4 separate layers and make them into one, and then you can group them or kind of duplicate them all from there. But you're going to have 16 individual layers that fill up this box. Okay, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but after doing it once, you're going to get really comfortable using the layers palette, and then you can just duplicate it. All right, make sense? Yes? Okay.